Hi, I'm Ed Hitchcock, the owner of Taylor Tackle, and today's episode is going to be teaching you guys how to fish Fish Lake in Washington State. Now, what's really cool about this lake is that it's only 2 hours away from downtown Seattle. So if you are a Seattleite, you're from Tacoma, maybe you're from Everett, this is an awesome fishery for you to just go and do a day trip. The ice usually starts forming about halfway through January. It was a little bit later this year. Last week is when we got first good ice. It's about, I think it's like February 1st, maybe February 2nd right now. And there's about 7 inches. So what I'm gonna cover today is how you guys can go out here and catch trout and you can catch perch. Now, it's mostly rainbows in here. I did catch a brown last year. They do stock it with browns. It's kind of a rare thing. They get pretty fished out in the summer and the fall, but hopefully we can get one of those through the ice for you guys. We're definitely gonna get a bunch of rainbows and we're definitely gonna get a bunch of perch. So if you like to have a fish fry in the middle of winter, this is the lake you want to go to harvest a bunch of perch. There's tons of perch here. There's tons of people out here catching buckets full of perch. And the trout are great eater size too. So yeah, so that's what we're gonna do today. And I'm gonna show you guys how to do both.
I have my otter friend here hanging out in the snow. He is sight fishing in a hole next to mine right now. He's I don't know what he's doing, cleaning off his coat, but he's just sitting up over one of the holes I drilled and then sight feeding down from it, catching a fish, coming back up, eating the fish on land on ice, and then dropping back down. Luckily it's just all the smaller trout and perch, so he's kind of doing me a favor. But yeah, you'll be seeing a lot more of him. He doesn't seem to be leaving. He's been here for about a half an hour since I drilled my holes this morning. It's just insane. It's so much fun here in Washington, up in the mountains here. You just never know what you're going to get. We've had coyotes and wolves out on the lake. We've had all sorts of stuff. There's been about 3 bald eagles that have dropped down next to the otter because there's fish carcasses there. It's just been pretty nutty. Oh, he's going to go feed. He might see something. Oh. He's sitting there and he's looking down the hole. He's standing like super still, and then all of a sudden he'll drop real quickly. Yeah, there he goes.
I think this is a perch messing around with me. Yeah, it is. That's okay. We're gonna get him. Maybe not a perch. Oh yeah, it's a trout. Oh, I gotta let my drag out a little bit. Just don't want to lose him at the hole. Oh yeah, nice little eater rainbow. All right, there we go. I'll show you guys, Otto's not the only one that can catch fish this morning. I can get one too, I guess. Oh, I'm thinking about keeping him. Oh wow, look. Looks like he escaped Otto's grasp at some point. All right. I guess I'll keep a couple of them. Might as well. I'm gonna cook up some brats out here today. Maybe I'll pan fry some of this and we'll eat a little bit of trout too, who knows. Okay, what you want to do with trout if you're keeping them is there's this little, here, I'm going to come up close. You want to bleed them out, right? And so if you bleed them out, that is going to help keep the meat fresh. Otherwise the blood will kind of soak into their meat. And so what you want to do is there's a little spot right here that attaches to the gills, and you're just going to want to clip this spot right here. And then I clip a couple more times, right? And then that blood's going to come right out. And that's just going to really preserve the meat better. It's going to taste a lot better. So just make sure that you're cutting them and bleeding them out if you're going to keep them. Hopefully Otto doesn't take this one. I'm gonna have to kind of keep it to my side to make sure that that doesn't happen. What trout will do a lot is they'll come in hard and you think that they didn't hit, but they did. They just totally whiffed. They just missed it because they're coming in so fast and their mouths are so small that they go and they whiff it. And what they tend to do is they tend to do a big circle all the way around, and then they'll show up again, but they'll be ready for it. They're keeping an eye on your jigging cadence while you're doing it, and so you want to continue doing whatever it was that brought them in, because when they swoop around, they've got an eye on your lure. And a lot of times what happens is on the second bite, they hit it on the drop down because they're trying to time it, because they're very used to insects falling from trees in the spring, summer, and fall. And so they're very used to seeing that hit the top of the water, letting it drift down, and they like to capitalize on that moment when it just kind of like gets into their kind of zone, right? So what I've noticed a lot is they'll come in hard, I'll chase it away from them, and if they miss, I'm gonna come back down and continue my swoop jigging, because a lot of times when they come back around, they hit it on that drop down, and then a lot of times too, they miss on that drop down again, and so you lead them back up again. And so like a lot of times I'll catch trout on my like second go around. They don't typically just like run away. And then sometimes I get them on my third go around. Now that time I wasn't really paying attention. He came in, I kept my cadence going, he came back, I was drinking my coffee twice, and I missed him the second time, and he just said, nah. He might be over there looking at our dead stick, which is set up on a jaw jacker. Whoa, that one didn't even show up on the flasher. Jeez. Oh, 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 oh. This is a close one. You gotta keep your drag loose, because when they're this close to the hole, they can just really break off at the edge of the hole. So you want to tucker him out and then get his head up through the hole like that. Now this is just a nice eater-sized trout. Something we see here at this lake all the time. Close up for you. Just a pretty color. A little skinny. It makes me a little worried about his feeding, and of course he's got some bite marks on him. I think Mr. Otter might have had a few attempts at him. He is going to go home to the dinner table. Okay, let's cover the baits we're using today. Now we're breaking them up into two. This side is perch, this side is trout. And when the bite is finicky, or I'm just kind of targeting eater-sized fish that I'm trying to just kind of harvest and catch a lot of, I'm gonna slim down. I'm gonna use these jigs. So for trout, I'm going to use this Fire Tiger with this chartreuse plastic, and I'm going to tip it with just a little bit of worm. And for perch, if I'm trying to catch a bunch of them and harvest them to eat, I'm going to use this Orange Tiger jig head with a little tiny Euro larva red plastic and another small piece of worm. And so I'm downsizing and doing jigs when I want to catch a bunch of fish, right? And so this jig head's going to be a little bit bigger on the perch side, because we're going to be fishing in deeper water and I want to get down there faster and I want to pound the bottom a little bit. It's going to be smaller on the trout side because I like that kind of quicker profile, a little bit more slender. So let's work into the bigger lures now. If I want to target bigger rainbows, especially the browns, I like to use this silver spoon. I've got a little snap up here which allows it to flutter down on its way down, and I tip it with a pretty big size night crawler. It's still cut in half, but I pierce it through two hooks and I let a big tail end hang off, and that kind of seals the deal. Now over here I've got this perch with a
perch spoon with a dropper chain. And this is what I'm using when I really want to target bigger perch. So I'm going to be pounding the bottom with this spoon, and then this separation here really drives perch crazy. So this spoon's going to call in fish. The dropper chain is going to allow the bait some separation. They're going to feed upwards and they're going to hit this. This is a bit of a bigger profile, and when I'm targeting those bigger ones, this is what I'm going to use. Now you're going to notice I don't have any bait tipped on this. I am going to tip it, but what I really like to do on these is tip them with perch eyeballs, and I'm going to show you guys an example of that later once we start perch fishing. But if you're keeping perch, one of them that you keep, you're going to pop the eyeball out with your thumb and tip it on here, and perch eyeballs just work incredible. They've got this like dangling stuff that hangs off of it, and the eye reflects light really well, and so that's what we're going to be using for bigger ones. And so these are the two breakouts. Perch, trout, you know, in the early and late evening hours, I like to slim down a little bit. For some reason, unlike a lot of other fish, especially in the Northwest, I see trout and perch get really active in the middle of the day. So I'm going to use the bigger ones in the middle of the day and the smaller ones in the light hours. So early morning, late evening. Now, I'm also sure that you guys are wondering, why am I using night crawlers instead of waxworms? I love waxworms. I prefer to fish waxworms 24/7. I fish them on this lake. I fish them everywhere. I prefer them over night crawlers. But this is a show to teach you guys how to ice fish right next to Seattle, and they do not sell waxworms here. So I order mine all online on Speedy Worms, but you know, I doubt you guys are going to go ahead and do that, but all the gas stations on number 2, the highway number 2 that lead up to here, and then in Wenatchee, if you're coming from the east side, they all sell night crawlers. Ooh, Otto's getting a little bit closer. I think he's seeing my recent success, and he wants to come over and steal some of my fish. He's getting a little bit more comfortable. He's been kind of slowing down. I've been beating him recently. I've gotten, I think, 3 trout now. So I think he's trying to take over my spot. We'll see. There we go. Yeah. Actually a nicer perch. Ooh, that's definitely an eater. There it is. Alright, so here's what we're gonna do. It's gonna look a little crazy, but this one's going home to the dinner table. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take this eye here. I'm gonna take my thumbnail. I'm hoping you guys can see this. Can't seem to get it out. Yeah, and then I just pop it like that. And that is some of the best perch bait you can come up with. So we're actually going to fish this one bare with no plastic. Right. So we're going to hook it up in a way where this still glows, right? But then this stuff droops down. It'll be like a little tail. You guys should just pop an eyeball out whenever you get the next one and throw that on your jig. All right, so now we're gonna do a dead stick approach. We've got our 2 perch eyeballs, and I'm gonna put a perch eyeball on this orange jig here, and then a perch eyeball on our perch dropper spoon with the chain. And what we're trying to do, we're in about 35 feet of water here. We're gonna try to put this close to the bottom, this dead stick,
right maybe like a foot or two off of the bottom. And our goal with this one is to take whatever is being a little lethargic and also to hold perch there. And so we want to have a bunch of perch down there, not only because we want to catch them, right, but because we want them to bring in more perch. They typically go on to a feeding frenzy, so if you can get a couple to stick around, it's really helpful. So right now, I actually have one coming up on this right now. Oh. There he is, come on. He's hitting it. I gotta focus back onto my instructions. Just give me a sec, guys. I don't want to miss a fish just because I'm teaching, you know? All right, they got less aggressive. Anyways, I'm gonna put this right down here, right for them. And that's just gonna sit there and that's gonna keep them all there. So now I'm switching over to what I wanna actively jig with, which is what's gonna really like get the bigger fish, right? It's a bigger profile and everything. And so I'm gonna actively jig this and try to get the bigger fish out of here. At least with this dead stick, I'm gonna be able to take whatever comes my way, regardless of size, and we still have an opportunity to take them. And then some of the bigger ones can be lethargic too. I've caught a lot of big ones on the dead stick, so you never really know. It's just great to have both of them going to really even out your odds. Man, there's a lot down there. There we go. Well, that one feels a little bit better. Oh yeah, that's a better one. That's about the average size on this lake. Once you start getting into them, that's what we're looking for in terms of eaters. My friends that were keeping fish just headed out, so we're gonna get this guy back in and keep this school around, but pretty nice, right? And it doesn't really matter which one you're dead sticking and which one you're jigging. Like, its whole purpose is to keep fish around and hopefully something will hit. What I've noticed is that it's kind of a finicky bite today. There's no shortage of perch, and if you fish for perch all day, you're gonna get 50 of them. The problem is I'm splitting my time between perch and trout, and I need to get back over to trout to get some more catches for you guys. But for some reason right now, they're being finicky. I'm calling them all in. I'm sticking them here. There's probably about 15 of them underneath my hole right now, and just sealing the deal's been a little tough. So we scaled down to, we're just using the micro jig, which I planned to dead stick, and I'm just jigging that one instead. Getting them to separate off the bottom, maybe a foot or two from the pack. So maybe like 6 feet off the bottom in total, and then pausing. And they're not like charging, they're not doing anything crazy. It's just like really subtle taps. There's a big school halfway up the water column. I don't know what they're doing. Well, the most aggressive ones are separating, at least. Yeah, a little bit bigger. All right, so I've been just dealing with small ones on the bottom this whole time, and then all of a sudden this like school of like 50 of them just come up halfway up the water column. I don't know what's going on. But then all of my techniques suddenly, when I start moving them up high, they just start getting real aggressive finally. I just have to keep this school here, I think. Yeah, I got 2 of them charging. Oh, fuck. What are you guys doing? There we go. Oh, that one I worked for. These little guys. Well, they're full of eggs right now. That's for sure.
Let's talk about location real quick. So this is Fish Lake. And if I want to do both trout and perch, I'm going to kind of separate these a little bit. So what I like for trout on this lake is I like to get into 5 to 10 feet of water, and then up to 15. And I really like the flats here. So I fish these flats coming up to here, you know, from 10 feet, even, you know, this little area right here, 8 feet, to 15 feet. And then I'll fish right on the edge of this drop off into the flat. And there's a bunch of areas like this. So definitely poke around. I fish the whole lake. I haven't seen a huge amount of difference. I like this gradual flat too out here. And then these steep transitions. So what I like to do then is I like to position myself in an area where I can fish a flat and a steep drop off at the same time. So like this is a pretty big 14-foot flat, so I'll fish this, but then I'll also be closer to like a point that'll have a you know, a drop off right here. So that's what I like for trout. You know what, every day is different. Sometimes we're catching them in like 6 feet of water. Sometimes we're catching them in 15. You never know. So I like to spread out and have my dead stick set up on like a tip up jaw jacker or iFish Pro in the shallow if I'm fishing deep, and then switch it up and go deep and shallow reverse until I figure out kind of where they're roaming. Now, what I also like about a spot like this is that it's right next to a deeper flat. You're going to catch perch anywhere in this lake, but typically you're going to catch them in these deeper flats. So starting at 20 feet out into 35 feet, just fish any of these flats and you're going to get perch. What we're going to do is we're going to try to call in schools. They're roaming around in giant schools. And then what happens is you pound the bottom enough, you get a couple perch there, and then it's just a perch party. You're going to have like 50 of them down there, and then you're just working them. If you want to zone in on the bigger perch, I either like to go really deep or right on the edge flat. And so my first go-to is like right, you know, here in this kind of like 20-foot range, because I have noticed that the larger perch will feed on insects and bait fish that frequent these weed beds a little bit more than the smaller ones will. The smaller ones have to stick to the school. So the bigger schools will be out here and they will have a ton of smaller perch in them. Whereas these bigger ones can kind of roam around on their own and go back and forth. Now that's not always the case. Sometimes you just got to go deep and sort through the giant school of perch, and it is what it is. Hopefully you get some bigger ones, but you know, you never know. So that's what I'm thinking about for location.
All right, we got Walt's first fish on the ice.
Oh, it's a little bit better trout. A little taller. I think Walt. What do you think? There we go.